Now that you have the basics of attacking down, there's another area of CV play that most players forget, and that has to do with your positioning on the map. A lot of players, for some reason, are under the impression that the CV belongs on the back line of the map. This is not the case, and there is quite a bit of tactical advantage in positioning your ship closer into the battle. There are 7 main tips that can guide your positioning across all maps. Firstly, don't sit on the outside edge. While technically it is the safest point on the map, sitting on the edge extends the amount of time it takes your planes to get back and forth from your carrier, and thus minimizing your potential strike power. We often make jokes about the lone battleship being the dead battleship. The same can be said for CVs. Now that we are not driving to the edge of the map, we need to be aware of where our teammates are so that we can rely on them as much as one can for support. Now that we know where our teammates are going, and that we're not going to the back lines, it's time to pick where we're going to take our ship. Islands are a great resource to use to get closer into the battle, but remain relatively safe. I choose this island here as it provides great cover from their main attacking direction. It also leads us into our next point. Attack angles refer to what sides and where you can get attacked from. In any situation, you want to minimize these angles down to positions that it's going to be hard for the enemy to obtain. For example, in this position, the enemy have to be above the red lines to attack me. It's going to be very difficult for them to get above these lines quickly, thus leaving me relatively safe. Being in a more forward position, even after considering attack angles, can leave you vulnerable. A good position is not only one that provides you cover, but is one that you can escape from if necessary. It's always important to have an escape plan if, for example, your angles of attack get breached. I finally reached my original targeted position. At this point, I see that the enemy team has pushed quite hard in towards D. At this point, I start assessing. If their team was to move hard into D, I can easily skulk on over towards A. If, however, their team turns around and goes straight up to A, I'm in a position where I can reverse backwards into a more safe position in B. Another big thing when making decisions on positioning is considering what the enemy has in their lineup and what the current position of their ships are. For example, if a team has a lot of destroyers, you're not going to want to play too aggressive initially until some of these destroyers have been killed off. Furthermore, if you see the team all moving in one direction, it's usually pretty safe to assume that you're fine to move in the other direction. If you suddenly see the team turn around and start coming in your direction, you need to be prepared to move quickly out of the way. The main thing about your enemy team is you need to be consistently watching them for any dramatic movement shifts. It's also very useful to have the last known positions with ship names on the map, so that if you see a destroyer pop up, you can keep track of where it was last spotted. Lastly, a CV is very well capable of capping if the situation is right. By using all the aforementioned tips, you can get your CV into a position where it is both safe and in cap. That's not to say you should drive to the middle of the map, aka B cap, in the first 5 minutes, but towards the end of the game there is always an opportunity, if the situation is correct, to cap. All the tips I have given you today are not a one-use only tip. You need to be consistently evaluating these tips as the game progresses, analyzing where the enemy team is, analyzing where your team is, looking at your attack angles, considering your escape plans. CVs are not easy by any means, but when used correctly and when the basic tips are applied correctly, you can be very effective in your positioning, allowing you to attack more, attack quicker, and even sometimes cap.